Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a View.
Well, welcome to another Word in Your Attic. And again, hands across the ocean, we are joined by the great Graham Parker. Hello, Graham.
Hello, David and Mark. How are you people?
We're good.
Fine.
Where are you, roughly? You're in New York State, right?
Yes, up about 2 hours plus from New York City, from Manhattan, well away from that chaos, thank you, in the wild, it's a Hudson Valley area, Catskill Mountains area, and I spend a certain amount of time here each year, and many years I've been in this area, and yeah, it was difficult getting out of London because
I was going to say, because when I first contacted you, you were in London, so you were there for a couple of months, weren't you, during lockdown? Is that right?
Oh yeah, I spent lockdown there, which I found very pleasant. You could breathe the air without a chemical tang in the back of your throat. You could see the bottom of the canals.
No airplanes.
I thought it was, and the weather was great. I thought it was absolutely fabulous, but I enjoyed it. I wish it would stay like that all the time, but it's. Of course, we'd all be broke, but there you go. But I had shows lined up, solo shows in the USA. Obviously, by February, I saw the writing on the wall, so that's all gone for this year. But I still wanted to get over here and managed to get over on June 7th on a nicely empty flight.
I was going to say, you're the first person we've spoken to who has actually taken a flight in this era. How was it? I mean, did you have an entire road to yourself, or what? How did it work?
Yes. It was, I walked into Terminal 5 around a couple of hours early, which I should have had 3 hours early, because it was an empty Terminal 5. And I thought, this is great. Where do I check in? There's no one here. You know, I was wearing a mask and there was a few attendants. And then I looked about a mile down the end of the terminal, and there was everybody for every flight that happened to be leaving. They just lumped the staff together in one place. So I went down there and everyone separated. It took forever, and I just about made it in time for boarding, because they had a Barcelona flight, a Madrid flight, and the USA flight. By the time I got to America, you know, I was in an empty row. Yes, everyone was separated. 62 passengers on a jumbo. It was
God.
It was idyllic.
You can play football.
Well, yeah, we could have had a game. It was idyllic, really. But the cost wasn't too bad either, you know. So and customs and immigration was like, yeah, get out of here. We want to get home. So it was very little traffic driving to upstate New York. So yeah, it's all gone back to bonkers by now, I think, by the looks of things.
Yeah, probably. So you're in a rural area, are you? You get out and walk, and you know, that must
the Hudson Valley is a stunning area. Catskill Mountains. It's south of Albany, New York, by about an hour and a half, and near the old capital of New York, which is Kingston.
Yes.
That's 20 minutes away, and there's a town called Newport. It's very neo-hippie, big kind of a university there, a college, whatever, which I've actually done talks at, which is weird. And it's wild land, you know, your bears and your deer. And
really?
Oh, wonderful.
Unfortunately, a plague of Lyme disease ticks, and I got nailed with a suspected bout of that last year, which luckily I hit with the doxycycline. Don't use it for COVID, okay?
It's the one recommended by the president, isn't it? That's right.
No, that's a hydroxychloroquine.
Oh,
that's a different one, yeah.
I'm sure people are trying doxycycline.
Yes.
Hey, if it sorts your limes out, it'll probably cure this, you know. Yeah.
So you don't get bears turning up in your back garden or anything like that?
Yes. The other place I used to live about 40 minutes ago, we had a 9-tree orchard, 9 apple trees. And in the 80s, if you remember the early Sopranos, Tony Soprano's outside by his pool with a gun, waiting for a bear to turn up in New Jersey because they were booming the population. So they boomed around my place, and there was lawn under there. So the only way I could get rid of them, because they'd have their cubs in the trees, and a bear pruning is a sight to see. They really rip the trees up, and they sit there with their cubs often, and you can't go, you know, you don't want to go under a tree with a bear mother. So the only way I could get rid of them so I could mow was set off a firework. I'd set off a bottle rocket, like a penny rocket thing, and off they'd run, and they'd go to the edge of the forest, and the cubs would climb to the very tops of trees and swing, and the mother would sit there looking at me like,
Yeah.
Piss off, mate. This is
You and whose arm?
Do you want some? Yeah.
And I'd come face to face with them about 6 foot away if they came out of the, and they largely look at you and then run like hell if you're lucky. If you get between the cubs and the mother, you're pretty much dead.
God, that's amazing.
So you got to play your cards right with a bear.
Yeah.
I do find
You see,
that.
I think nature's getting bolder. Nature's getting more confident. I mean, even in Britain, small birds come up to you in a way that they never did before. Robins hop up near your feet.
Yeah, we had deer. We had deer coming into the city centres, didn't we? During the major lockdown.
It does
They're
take
evolving.
We go, where is everybody? This is great.
They're evolving. Yeah, they'll be wearing suits soon.
So how have
Yeah.
you been passing your time since you got back there, Graham?
Well, not doing gigs, and my guitar has largely stayed in its case where it belongs. I decided lockdown means lock down my brain. Okay,
Really?
I've just had it with all this, Forget it. You're supposed to feel guilty if you're not creating like your major work. And there's a bit of that creeps in, and I think, no, I've done enough. Come on, mate. You're nearly 70.
Fair
Relax. So I'll wait until 2021, the gigs are rescheduled. I have my doubts of the way things are going with the virus booming in America and various places. Here, as soon as I arrived, I'd fill out a form on the plane, and a lady called me up the very next day when I woke up from the Ulster County Health Services and spoke to me. It was very well done, and as a consequence of how tight they've been, there's been 0 cases reported often in this area. And the same up where I go in Vermont sometimes and stay. That's been similar, but now the tourists, of course, are flocking up from the city, and I don't know what's going to happen. But it's very safe here, and people have been wearing masks, and obviously the population helps because everyone has a home with hundreds of acres around them. Not everyone, but quite a lot of people. And I'm surrounded by acreage, so I can be, I like the serenity of it and all that. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So you've not played any tunes, or you haven't written a COVID-19 song or anything. You must be the only musician who hasn't.
No, that's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like writing songs about Trump. I mean, please, come on.
It's too easy.
No, you're absolutely right.
Any fool could do
We
it,
all feel we've had enough of them.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of dignity in not performing every night on the internet.
Yeah, I've done a few blogs for like Adam Carolla, who had I think he had the biggest Guinness Book of Records blog thing, not blog, whatever you call it, a podcast in the world at one point. And I've done one for somebody else, and I'm on a tribute album for a New York singer, Willie Nile, singer-songwriter.
Oh, I know Willie Nile.
Yeah, Willie, and I did that. I recorded that years ago, actually, and somebody's put a tribute to him together. So I did a little clip from that recently. And every time I pick up the guitar and sing, I'm alarmingly good. And I'm saying, don't put it away, stop it.
So have you been
dabbling? Okay.
Have you been through the attic, as it were, in this?
The attic, yeah. I've got a few.
Any odds and ends?
I've been posting lyrics from Don't Ask Me Questions and
we've seen them
on Twitter, and I think you guys can.
Yeah, I saw that when you posted it. How did you come upon that?
Well, I've had these boxes, and I knew all this stuff was there. I've got some stuff in the UK, but I've got more here, surprisingly. And there's lyrics going back way before my career started with songs that, I tend to just creep out bits now and again. There's one called 1978 Space Boy Blues that I think was written in 1973 when I had some Bowie influence to it. I don't remember it.
Oh, really? You were looking forward to the space age future of 1978?
Yes,
5 years.
yes. I thought I'd have a flying car by then, but
we'd all have jetpacks by then.
So I've got all this stuff. I just casually thrown it and higgledy-piggledy into various boxes and stuff, and T-shirts like you won't believe. One-off T-shirts from gigs. and I've been posting that on Twitter. But here's something, probably the first promotional item of my entire career. And it's been used to put coffee on, I think, back in the 70s. It's a Graham Parker Howling Wind scarf.
Wow, that's fabulous.
And there it is. Look at that.
So what are you supposed to do? Was that a sort of football scarf or just a general kind of...
well, if they got something right, Phonogram, it fits with the title, Howling Wind. So I guess it's...
I never thought of that.
It could be a bit football, yes, it certainly could. So that's the very first promotion.
Oh, yeah, you hung on to it, though. That's good to see.
Brilliant, yeah. I got to hang on to that. There may be a Rumour member or two who kept things. Here's another thing here that's pretty interesting. A record company guy, I can't remember, years back said to me, I've got a mercury poisoning thermometer. Do you want it? I said, give me. And here it is, the best kept secret in the West.
It's a promotional thermometer.
Yes.
That's
cool,
fantastic.
That has to be the only one. It has to be the only time anybody's done a promotional thermometer, unless people know different. That's amazing.
Very good work for the marketing department.
Yeah, right. That's about the
Mercury poisoning. A thermometer. Yes, it can be done.
That's all that Mercury did, I think. But,
yes.
So was
that it at least?
Was that done by Mercury themselves?
Well, no, it couldn't have been. Of course not.
It was done by Photograph in the UK.
It says Chicago on it. So I don't know whether Arista did that, because Mercury Poisoning came out on a sort of disc with a skull on it and grey vinyl.
It did.
It came out on Arista, I think. It was sort of promotional. So no, it wouldn't have been done by Mercury. Of course, what am I thinking? They would have been smart to do that, but they didn't. I didn't give them the song I'd finished with them. There's that.
So what's the most horrific thing? What's the most horrific idea anybody's ever pitched you for a promotional item? I was reading recently the Boomtown Rats blamed the fact that they didn't make it in the States on the idea that Mercury, I think, was it Mercury? No, it wasn't Mercury.
Yes, they were on Ensign, so I don't know where they came out.
I can't remember. It's a big company. And they sent out rats, didn't they? God. Dead rats in formaldehyde.
Oh,
that's absolutely right. And they reckon it's killed the campaign stone dead. And they may well be right, actually, in this case. Don't you think? Whoever thought that was a good idea?
That's funny. Well, a lot of British acts, especially the English accents, had a very hard time here. Ian Drury, for instance, the great bard himself, didn't catch on in America to a great extent. And there's many acts with the harsh English accent. I was more of the soul variety and sang in an American accent, because that's the way you should sing rock and roll, I'm afraid.
Right.
So the English accents had a bit of a hard time, and some crept through, like the Clash and the Sex Pistols, to the revolutionary ones like that. They made it through the net, but there was quite a few that didn't quite catch on, and they didn't know how to market them either. I mean, Mercury didn't know how to market me at first, because Journey and Boston and Kansas and Styx ruled the airwaves. So it was very difficult for a lot of us, really, to get any traction.
Yeah. Have you got any? Your records there? Do you keep your records? Your record collection, is that in the UK or the US or where?
I think I have one of everything here. There was another thing, I should have had them in front of me. I don't remember long boxes. Did they happen in England?
Oh God, the horrible kind of extended version of the CD.
Yes,
which you had to rip apart as soon as you bought it.
Yes, I asked the record company. What do I do with this? They said, rip it up and throw it away. And it was because they didn't know how to display them in shops. A CD seemed like too small an item at the time. So they bigged it up with this big wasteful cardboard box. It didn't last long. So I've got a few of those. I've got some records. I mean, tons of obscure, demos as well. I've got going back to cassettes, as well as obscure things like when I toured for 5 dates with Rick Danko of the band. There's a cassette of me and him I think, doing some rehearsal. I mean, maybe multiple cassettes of us, really obscure stuff that if you try to release, you're going to run into the Danko estate. So I don't bother with it. It's just for me. I'll wait until I've snuffed it and see if the kids can do something with these things. I've been digging up all these T-shirts, all these obscure ones, and I'm just telling my son Jimmy here, who set us up on the Zoom, I was saying, you and Natalie, you know, you got at least a pittance here when you sell these, when I've coughed it. So make a few bob on all of my stuff, for goodness
The old
sake.
T-shirts. The old T-shirts.
Old T-shirt of some obscure ones, one-off gigs that they made a T-shirt. There's one bill from the WHFS festival that had Squeeze, the Catherine Wheel, so many bands, me, and Tony Bennett on the bill. I got a T-shirt from that. Crazy stuff.
So tell me,
here's a
Did
very.
you have any of your lyrics? You say you had some lyrics there too?
Yes, the lyrics that I put up on Twitter.
Yeah.
You've done those.
We can show those pictures. Yeah.
Yes, there's one that I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
It seems I wrote a song probably in 72, 73, or it may have been more like a poem called God Save the Queen. Unbelievable. Did I send that to you?
Yeah, well, yeah. We've got a still of it. Yeah, we'll show people a still of it. Yeah.
Yes, and below that, though, I bailed out on that, fortunately, and then started writing a verse from That's What They All Say, which made it onto
which made it onto a record, yes.
Yeah. So I've got songs. What amazes me is it seems like in 72, 73, I was working on things like Watch the Moon Come Down. By 73, 74, I had about 5 or 6, maybe 7 of the albums that made it, songs that made it as a heat treatment. So this stuff, it doesn't just pop up overnight. It's the same with everyone's career. Mixed in with those songs were terrible songs, you know, The Edge of a Broken Dream and things like this, you know, Borrowed My Last Smile, man.
So are they all still this kind of exercise books? I mean, do you just scribble it all down? Sorry,
yeah, school books, exercise books. Just those books you got in the the corner shop, you know, the news agents.
Right. Well, you're right.
Was this the time you were traveling around? You were hitchhiking. I remember when you were on Word in Your Ear. You were telling us about hitchhiking around, Morocco, and was that this period? It was, wasn't it? I think.
Oh yeah, there would be lots from that period, and especially just after that, when I returned to England about 1971, 72. So I was writing feverishly then because I had this absurd idea that I wasn't going to do all that traveling again. I'd done my hippie bit, you know, where you're sleeping on floors and outside in a sleeping bag. I'd done that, and I wouldn't do it again until I got paid for it by becoming a professional musician, you know, the most rash idea possible. But miraculously, by 1975, there I was with a record deal. So there was, hundreds of songs that you discard. You know, so I didn't know whether I was going to be Ravi Shankar or James Taylor at the time. so there was millions of it until I kind of, struck back into the roots of what I liked when I was more like 14 or 15, you know, and that. But fast forward into the future for 1 second, here's something you probably don't know about. In the 90s, some guy from the Jack Kerouac estate, who was a fan, got hold of me. And he wondered if I'd do some readings of Kerouac material. And they were having this thing happened at the time when there was people reading the beats, you know, the beat poets and writers. And I'd only read one book. It was called Lonesome Traveler, which I found out later, which was not really a singular book. It was Kerouac stuff cobbled together, but still it was beautiful and atmospheric. And I never read his classic On the Road until I did some of this stuff in the 90s when Viking re-released it. So I got hooked up with this scene, and I do some shows, and then there was a suggestion came up from Viking Penguin to do an audio book on cassette of me reading cut down versions of Kerouac's Visions of Cody. And here it is.
All right.
And it's a double cassette, and it's got the great musician David Amram. Yes, you would know
Tell
him.
me about him. I've only recently discovered him. Wrote a load of stuff for films and things like this. Is that right?
Yes, he wrote the theme stuff for Manchurian Candidate.
Yes.
For one thing, I think he was one of the few people, if not the only people, who backed Kerouac on stage when he did readings.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he plays everything. He's a genius and still going.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant guy. He's kind of like the kind of guy who drinks coffee to calm down. One of those guys. I mean, he is absolutely full on all the time. And what we did was go in a studio, and it was always one take. I would have my bits, little part that I would do. It could be speed rapping Kerouac. It could be poetic, gentle. And he would say, "Oh, I think that suits a piano. I think that suits an Indian flute." He had a load of flutes and little Indian things around his neck all the time. Looked like a Roach Motel, really. And he'd pick one of these out and played, he'd play some Indian stuff. And then he'd play saxophone on another track, some, jazz sax, bebop stuff while I was speed rapping a part. So that's full of all these little things. You might be able to find that online, Visions of Kerouac, read by me, with David Amram, and one of the most fantastic. And I also appeared live, and on the bill were people like Allen Ginsberg and Odetta before Ginsberg died.
Right.
And Thurston Moore from the what's the name?
Sonic Youth.
Sonic Youth.
Yeah, so we got get together.
So you were on the same. You were on the same bill with Ginsberg. What was he like? How extraordinary.
He was in deep conversation with Thurston Moore, and I doubt if he knew who I was. I don't think I'm self-consciously weird enough for him to know who I am. I said, "Hi, Alan." I shook his hand at least, and Odetta, I might have shaken her hand.
We've got to ask you, because we're only talking about it the other day, Mark and I. Rick Danko. How was Rick Danko?
We love Rick Danko, but we appreciate that he was a liability.
Well, I've worked with him. I've worked with Garth Hudson on the Struck by Lightning album, and Levon Helm. I've sort of opened for the band when Levon was going. In fact, I was going to play his gig, the Ramble, the Levon Midnight Ramble. And I'd sort of put it off because I try to avoid everything anywhere near Woodstock. It tends to be you don't get paid because it's all benefits,
Right,
and I've done my time with that stuff. Thanks very much, a lot of it. But I was going to play his Ramble finally with the Figs, the band, my off times backing band in America. And then he unfortunately got very ill, and then he died. So I didn't get to do it. I've actually got a poster somewhere. I should take a photo of that and send it to you. Of a gig that didn't happen, unfortunately.
Oh, right.
And Rick Danko, they were all very, I don't know how you describe them. They were all on a kind of lateral level, or they were quite different from the way I think, which is a bit more organized and straightforward, probably. Rehearsing with Danko was a thing of wonder. I mean, how we got it together, I don't know. But he would sing backing vocals for me, and I'd be doing like Rag Mama Rag with him with a 5-piece band. We played tiny clubs; it was barely advertised. And Danko had a guy named Shredney, a mountain man, who wore a jacket that looked like it came from the 70s, purple jacket, and he played demon harmonica. And we had Gary, I forget his name, on drums, and we had some good players. But we played to clubs with hardly. It was the 90s, you never knew what was going to fly. Very little actually did, It was a strange period. But we did about 5 gigs, and Danko was, we got to the first gig, and it was a mess, really. We were under rehearsed, but to have Danko playing bass, singing "Watch the Moon Come Down," a high harmony that never existed, was really a thing of great beauty.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I've done more of those things than people know about that slip through the net here and there.
Who have been the people you've been most thrilled to play with?
Well, I'd say the band people was one because of their, what they do. I mean, to stand back and see Levon Helm behind you when you're singing a verse of The Weight, that's, on stage to a couple of thousand, that's pretty something. That's pretty cool. it's not the thing I do collaborate or anything, but over a long career, somehow I've been, what's his name? Nile Rodgers from the...
Right,
from Chic. Yeah.
He had a show on MTV. It was a very obscure show for a while, again, probably in the 90s or early 2000s. And before he suddenly was hip again.
Absolutely.
And I did an obscure song of mine called Green Monkeys that came from the album Human Soul, I think. There were two sides, the real side and the surreal side. The surreal side was mainly songs that lasted a minute and a half, and they were joined up like Abbey Road. That was my idea of this second side. And, he said, I want to jam on you with that. And it's not an easy song. And the guy jammed with me. You might find it on YouTube somewhere.
Right.
It was on MTV. He had his MTV show. That was pretty cool. With him jamming away, doing funky guitar to this song. There's been lots of things like tours. Eric Clapton, for instance, on the road with him for 4 months and hanging out with Eric late at night playing. And I've got some things here of gigs I did. Before, let me go back to 78 for 1 minute. I posted a photograph, like an Instamatic of me. Well, it was me took the shot. It was Billy Connolly was with me in the Rumour on a sort of press junket thing, record company boat trip in Sydney Harbour. It turns out.
What could possibly go wrong?
I remember some members of the horn section, the Rumour brass one of them was lying under the prow, that thing that swings dangerously around, whatever it's called.
Oh, the boom.
The boom, yes.
Yeah.
We were totally shit-faced. I mean, rat-arsed, I think you'd say. And I've got a note here. It says 12:30, day off Sydney, Rushcutters Bay, boat trip wharf, Sydney Harbour, with Billy Connolly and somebody called Doctor on the Go. I don't know who that was. But that's here in this diary. And then there's all this stuff from the Clapton tour where I've written a few things. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Oh, Holmdale. This was 85 with Eric Clapton. We had a full band with Brinsley in it, actually, playing guitar. Holmdale, New Jersey, Garden State Arts Centre. And it says, like playing to the Stepford Wives. Fast food, slow people. And that was your audience in 1905. Yeah, so I've got a few things like that. And then if we go fast forward to the much more beautiful time of me in This Is 40, getting my own director's chair.
Oh, this is the Judd Apatow.
Oh, of course, the Judd Apatow.
Right. Yeah,
there it is. This Is 40. And,
explain what happened, because Judd Apatow's a huge Graham Parker and the Rumour fan, isn't he? And didn't he get the band to play the part themselves? Was that?
Yes, we were on the movie. They played themselves. They're still. They might still be getting a few residuals with luck.
Right.
And,
good.
And I acted in it, and that was around 2010. And coincidentally, totally coincidentally, me and the Rumour reformed and then did Three Chords Good. And then we had to hold that for a year because Judd said this movie's not coming out until early, I think around Christmas 2012, because of all the summer blockbuster hero movies that were coming out. So we had to go on hold for a bit with the album, and then we toured. But everyone on a movie like that, a Hollywood movie, Universal paying for it, gets their own director's chair cover, and they're scattered all around, away from the action of the filming. And so you sit down on Megan Fox's chair, for instance, or Paul Rudd's chair, right. And they're everywhere. And in the end, though, they have the people, the staff, give you your Graham Parker one to take with you. Which is
very
touch,
good. So, have you during this time have you been in touch with old mates or musicians who are similarly kind of stuck indoors, off games like you are?
Yes, I've been in touch with the Gold Tops guys, who were the last band I toured with, who played on the Cloud Symbols album, which included Martin Belmont, and in touch with all the Rumour chaps as well.
Right.
We've been in email touch and keeping up with each other and what we're doing, and as well as many other people, and some long conversations with old friends, you know, at the beginning of lockdown and during it, to kind of support each other through it.
Sure. Because I think we talked about this when you did Word in Your Ear. The you and the Rumour are a kind of very rare item because you all speak to each other, don't you? You're all
Well, I think, not to mention being alive.
Yeah, well, that's one thing.
No, it's an extraordinary tale. I can't think of another group like it. You're all still here, and you all appear to absolutely adore each other. How did that happen?
Great guys. Yeah, we're friends for life. You know, we just are. You know, there's the ups and downs, but none of the downs have been brutal, like, you know, fighting on stage and trying to, you know, and suing each other and things like that. There wasn't enough money to sue each other. That's the secret, you see. And I'm the songwriter. You can't touch that. Successful. Yeah. You can't touch my songwriting money. Sorry, pal. But you know, we're mates, and the you know, reforming was absolutely fabulous. We did it, and then we thought, well, that was it. Stop now while we're ahead.
Right.
And it's great that we're in touch with each other, and
it is. It's really good. It's really
touching. It is.
So when this whole bloody war is over, as we say, what are you looking forward to doing most?
You know what? I'm kind of looking forward to doing some gigs in 2021, I think. But I have my doubts. I really do. It's everyone's scratching their heads on how we're going to bring this back together. It's difficult because, you know, we don't know how tenuous this thing. Well, we do know how tenuous it is already, this virus, don't we?
Yeah.
And we know that the slip-ups of, you know, you can't keep people penned up forever, but it means, you know, you've seen the figures, you know what's going on.
Yeah, well, in America, yeah.
No, but it's particularly difficult, I think, for kind of rock and roll gigs, because they work on the basis of kind of too many people in too small a space. You know, as Jane Austen, I think, said, the secret of a good party is too many people in too small a room.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
you know, whereas.
But Dave Grohl put a wonderful thing out on online about a month ago, talking about how that was the essence of all performances. You know, that's what made it exciting, was the fact that a load of people are crammed into a small space, all feeling the same way at the same time. You know,
well, difficult to replicate. You're right. I mean, I you know, touring to me, it's over. I've had it. You know, I just don't want to do it, but I do it anyway. And you know, if I never saw another aeroplane seat or a venue inside of a venue in the sad afternoon light when no one's there, and the sound, you know, the guy with the microphone hasn't turned up yet, I'd be a much happier man. But you know,
I can really picture that.
It's funny. This is why people die. You know, I mean, but when I get on stage, and if it's especially a packed house, even if it's half full and three quarters, and they are with it, you cannot beat it. You know what I'm saying? Sure. That is the only reason to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, we don't know what the future is. It maybe I have to bite the bullet and start doing these live shows, which I've avoided like the plague. And two things I said, I think I mentioned to you in an email, David, that I at the beginning of COVID, I swore to myself I will not download Zoom, and I will not start baking sourdough bread.
Right, you did.
You've done both.
So this is my son's laptop, and he's got Zoom. So,
right, okay.
But,
this is becoming a confessional now.
Yeah, it's a confessional, really. This is it. I'm letting it all out here, baby. And what do? We talk about the past, you know.
So is it sourdough bread next? Will that be the next thing?
Oh, I might get to it. Yeah, I'm thinking about some sugar cookies with something added to them, and so that may be coming up soon. I do like to cook anyway, but I can get a meal together in an hour or half an hour. But the actual, you know, it was just one of those things. There's a lot of people doing live. And I see a lot of it going wrong, where everyone's waiting. They're on the chat room. It's like, how do I get it? You have to go back to his website and refresh. You have to, I'm not getting involved in this. All I've got is an iPad and an ancient iPhone. So, but you never know what's around the corner here. So the future is unknowable. That's why we talk about the past a lot. We had something to do with it.
Well, look, Graham, it's been delightful talking to you and joining you in your attic.
Fabulous. Before we go,
go on. What you got there?
Need during lockdown. It's called the Ants.
Okay.
And I can barely lift it.
Right. It looks like it.
This is the book you need. It will get you through 2 or 3 lockdowns.
So these giant pictures of terrifying-looking insects. Is that?
Well, there's a lot of text, unfortunately, and I got about halfway through it. It's a.
Good grief! There is a lot.
It's like one of the biggest books on earth.
Good God!
But I would say that's what you need for lockdown. That's my advice. A book it's by Bert Holdobleu and Edward O. Wilson, pretty famous people in the ant world.
In the ant world,
quite expensive to post.
Yes.
Well, I know, it costs a lot.
Thanks very much for sparing the time. All the very best, and we hope you're back playing live and having fun as soon as possible.
Yes, and I want to see that audience face again in 2021, in April, May, in the USA is what I've got rescheduled at the moment, which is very difficult because my agents had to reschedule hundreds and hundreds of other gigs. So as every single agent in the world, it's been difficult for them, for musicians who. All the musicians have been very difficult for people who depend on the next gig.
No, sure.
So you know what it's like. You've been talking to a few of these people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. All the best.
Very nice to see you.
Great to see you.
I hope to see you back in Blighty at some point in the future.
Yes, I should be back around October, I think, and we'll see. I hope things are better then.
All right, Graham. Lovely
Terrific.
to talk to you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thumbs up to everyone. Be well.
All right. Cheers.